Shalom, shalom, mishpucha. We're going to do the blessing for the canting of the Omer. Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al safirat haomer hayom yom 48. Blessed are you, Yahweh Elohah, King of the universe, who's commanded us to count the Omer on this day, day 48.
Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah. As we continue with our ascending, now we're at that time of where we are ascending, getting ready to ascend that mountain, getting ready to be able to come to that place of where we can finally stand in the presence of our Father and of our King. How awesome it is. And what a powerful chapter we're going to read as we are in chapter 50. And we are continuing. And tonight we're really going to see the unfolding of that which the Father has been revealing. As we have seen, most of the chapters from 45 to 49 is really about the nations and very specific nations that has been spoken about, and judgment coming to very specific nations. And tonight we are going to have a look at the nation of Babylon. And so a lot of the other chapters, those nations are physical nations. And like I said to you, we're looking at the physical nations, but at the same time, we were looking at a spiritual. And tonight, we're going to see a Babylon, a physical Babylon, a Babylon to understand that in the time of when Babylon was destroyed, but yet at the end of the day, there is going to be another physical Babylon, but there is also a spiritual Babylon, and that is what we need to understand tonight. So let us read from Jeremiah chapter 50. The word that Yahuwah spoke concerning Babel, concerning the land of Kasdim, by Yirmiyahu the prophet. Declare among the nations, and let it be heard. And lift up a banner, let it be heard, and do not conceal it. Say, Babel shall be taken, Baal shall be put to shame, Merodach shall be broken, her images put to shame, her idols shall be broken. So if we have a look at this very scripture here of chapter 2, and we have a look at where it talks about Babel. So this Babel is the word that is being used in Hebrew, and we know it as being Babylon. And what does that mean? Babel is the word H894, which means confusion by mixing. So that is basically what Babel means, and it comes from the root word H1101. And that means to mix, to mingle, to confuse, to confound, to mix oneself. So think about this. So you see, what is everything that Babylon is representing? Babylon is representing the confusion through the mixed seed. So what do we see going on in the world today? What do we see? Everything is about bringing us into a place of mixed seed. What is going on in the world right now in terms of them being able to get us to bow to a Babylonian system. Babylonian system is going to bring us into confusion. So if we look at our religious systems, there's a lot of mixed seed in our religious systems. Why? Because a little bit of everything goes. You know, there's a little bit of paganism, a little bit of idolatry, there is pride, arrogance. There's so much mixed in to religious systems. And so that is why when Father says, come out of Babylon, come out of Babel, what does he mean? When he says he's going to destroy Babel, what does it mean? It means he wants us to come out of that place of where we are about the mixed seed, of where we are about confusion. Because you see, this is the thing. If we don't come out of the mixed seed, the confusion continues to carry on. So that is why you got to come out. So, when we are in a religious system, the only way to come right is to come out of the religious system. Come out of that religious system. So come out of the religious systems of like Christianity and these religious systems that want to lead us astray, because it brings confusion. It brings truth mixed with falsehood. And this is the very thing that we're going to be able to understand, because it's mingled, it mixes, we mix oneself with something that is not truth. And that's what brings mixture. And that is everything of what started in the Garden of Eden already with Eve, when Satan came to her and presenting to her to say, you will not surely die. It was truth mixed with what? Mixed with a lie. She wasn't going to physically die, but she was going to die in a spiritual sense. And so this is Satan's plan, to bring in the mixture, to bring in the confusion. And so what is being said? Babel shall be taken, Baal shall be put to shame. So who is Baal and what is Baal? Baal is the concordance number H1078. And what is Baal? Baal was the deity that is known as Baal. So it comes from the root word H1168, which is Baal. And what is Baal? Baal is the word Lord. And so it is a master. It is the Baalim. It was the gods that they would serve. They would have many gods. And this god was known as Baal. And this is why it is important that we don't use the name Lord, because Lord is the same word for Baal. So if we use the word Lord, it's the same as speaking Baal, because it's where it comes from. And that you can go get in the concordance, straight from the concordance in H1078 and H1168. You just need to go look up those concordance references and you will see that it is referring to Lord. And so this was the god of the Babylonians that they were serving. And so he's saying, her images shall be put to shame. Her idols shall be broken. So understand, this is what the Father is saying. The images of this whole Babylonian system is going to be able to be put to shame. And the idols are going to be broken. So the idolatry and all of this trust and faith that we've put in the Babylonian system is going to come to naught. For a nation shall come up against her from the north, which shall make her land waste, and none shall dwell in it. They shall flee. They shall go both man and beast. Okay, now these next few scriptures until verse 7, this is end time. And in those days, at that time. So when it speaks about and in those days, so you must know that in those days, at that time, normally it's talking messianic. So it says, declares Yahuwah. So in those days, at that time, declares Yahuwah, the children of Israel shall come, they and the children of Yehudah, together weeping as they come and seek Yahuwah their Eloah. So look there again. The children of Israel shall come. So it's Israel shall come, they and the children of Yehudah. So it's talking about, again, the two houses, the house of Israel and the house of Judah, that is going to come back, that is going to become one house. And we see this, we'll just quickly read Hosea 1 verse 11. Hosea 1 verse 11 says, the children of Yehudah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one head. So you see, they will not serve the Baalim. They're not going to serve these other gods. Because that's why it tells you in Hosea chapter 2, look there, look and see. Go and see Hosea chapter 2. There it says in verse 16, and it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you shall call me my husband and no longer call me my Baal, my Lord. And I shall remove the names of the Baals from your mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. So understand, he is going to remove all those Baal names where we've been carrying on with Lord and Lord and God and Lord and God and Lord and God. And he's going to remove those names, because we will no longer call him my Baal, my Lord, but we are going to call him by his name, Yahuwah. And he is our husband. And this is why we are entering into a covenant now. As we are entering into the time of Shavuot, there's going to be a ketubah where we are to be betrothed to our husband, the one to whom we will bow. No other gods, no other Baalim. And so that is why he's saying that, and the children of Yehudah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one head, and shall come out of the earth, for great is the day of Israel. Yasharal shall raise up. There shall be Yasharal that will raise up, and that will be the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah that will become one house. And you see, and I shall remove those names that he says then in chapter 2. And so look at what he says. Look at what he says in verses 19. And this is what we are preparing ourselves for as we're entering into this time now of Shavuot. What is he saying? And I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and shall take you as a bride unto me in righteousness and in right ruling. So you see, he wants a bride that is righteous and in right ruling, not in confusion, not in worshipping false religious systems. And he says, and in right ruling and loving commitment and compassion. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahuwah. You shall yada Yahuwah. You shall know. You shall perceive, recognize, understand, become acquainted with him as a husband and a wife. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuwah, that I answer the heavens and they answer the earth. So praise the Father. And look at what he says in verse 23. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who are not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Alua. Amen. So there we go. This is exactly what is being spoken of over here. And so we continue in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 5, and it says, they shall ask the way of Zion, their faces towards it. Come, let us join ourselves to Yahuwah in an everlasting covenant, never to be forgotten. Praise Abba Yahuwah. This is what we just read. He's going to betroth us to him, and we will be able to return back to his covenant and his covenant ways, which was given to us on Mount Sinai in Exodus chapter 19 from verses 5. And this is everything of what we are preparing ourselves for. How amazing that this chapter is just fitting in so perfectly with what we are busy preparing ourselves for what we're going to celebrate on Saturday night. And so if we have a look at Jeremiah, which we've covered this, but let's just quickly look at Jeremiah chapter 31, from 31 to 34, because you must understand what you are preparing yourself for, because you are preparing yourself to be able to enter into covenant with him. So 31, from verses 31 to 34, and it says, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall make a renewed covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah, not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day when they strengthened their hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahuwah. For this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahuwah. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Alua, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahuwah. For I shall forgive their crookedness and remember their sin no more. Praise Abba Yahuwah. This is everything of what the Father is going to do as we're entering into our time, as we're counting down 2 more days to go, where we're getting prepared for us to ascend the mountain, to stand before the Father, to receive this promise, to receive this ketubah, this very marriage covenant that he wants to give us. Now look at verse 6, and it says, my people have been wandering sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray, turning them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All who found them have devoured them, and their adversaries have said, we are not guilty because they have sinned against Yahuwah, the home of righteousness and the expectation of their fathers Yahuwah. Now, understand something. Is this not exactly where we have been, led astray by all these shepherds in all these religious systems that we found ourselves in Babylon? Babylon has given us the mixed seed. Babylon has given us all the confusion. Babylon has given us to chase after shepherds, prophets, teachers, evangelists, all these people that are just taking us further away from the Father because it's not bringing us back into covenant. Has it really been bringing us back into covenant? Is it really bringing us back into that place of intimacy with the Father? Or is it just giving us again another religion? What have we been returning back to? And then people want to return back to Judaism. Do you understand that there's nothing that's going to profit you to return back to Judaism? Judaism is just another Babylonian religion that is going to be able to just lead you more astray. All it does is it puffs you up and gives you more head knowledge, but it's not bringing you back into intimacy with the Father. The Father wants the heart. The Father wants a heart intimacy with us. And this is what we are to be able to return back to. And that is why he says that they thought that they could be able to bring judgment upon the children of Israel. Because why? Because we have turned away from righteousness. We have turned away from our Father. We have turned away from Abba Yahuwah. But verse 8 says, flee from the midst of Babylon, come out of the land of the Kasdim, and be as rams before a flock. So there we go. Revelation 18 verses 4. What does Revelation 18 verses 4 say? Revelation 18 verses 4 says, let's see what it says. It says, and I heard another voice from the heaven saying, come out from her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive her plagues. So the Father is very adamant, telling us, come out of these things that hold you captive. Come out of these things that are leading you astray. Come out of these religious systems that is only giving you polluted. You're drinking from polluted cisterns. This is what we started reading in Jeremiah right in the beginning when he said, my people have drank from polluted cisterns. It tells you in Jeremiah chapter 3. And now he's telling you, come and drink from the living water that is from the rock, from the one who's going to give us water that comes from the rock so that we may never thirst. Yeshua said, I am the living water that you drink, and if you drink from this water, you will never thirst again. So this is what he's saying. Come out from these religious systems. And not only come out of these religious systems, but come out from this world system that is going to lead us astray, where we are slaves to this Babylonian system of this world that is making people more and more bow to their system. This is why they're trying to put a sting in us. This is why they're trying to put a V thing in us, getting us to bow more and more to a system that would lead us astray. So what is he saying? He's saying, let's look at 2 Corinthians 6. Let's quickly look at 2 Corinthians so that we get this coming out. What does he say? What does he say to come out? He says, come out from that which is unclean. So he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 17 to 18, he says, therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuwah, and do not touch what is unclean, and I shall receive you. So you see, we must come out and not touch that which is unclean. So everything that he speaks in his Torah that says clean and unclean, we need to understand, come out of that. And I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuwah the Almighty. Amen. And so we continue to read in verse 9. For look, I am stirring up and bringing up against Babel an assembly of great nations from a land of the north, and shall array themselves against her. From there she shall be captured. Their arrows are like those of mighty skilled man, not returning empty-handed. So you see, Babel in that time was destroyed, but this Babylon is going to represent I think it represents more than one nation at this point in time, because many people think that America is Babylon. Yes, we can see how America is Babylon because of the merchants, because of everything come out of there. But understand the origin of everything at this point in time, even when we have a look at where the headquarters is for this elite group of people, the headquarters itself is being run from Jerusalem, from the Eretz Israel. This is the very thing that we must understand, is that that nation itself is a nation that right now is like a Babylon. It's like Babylon itself. And so we must understand that this is made up of, then you've got Rome, and you've got the Pope, and you've got the false prophet, and these false religions. You've got all these things coming together. So that's why I say this Babylon it's going to represent more than one nation of where we put where we give our allegiance to, where we bowing to these nations, these mighty nations, and this, I suppose, even this this world, this one world order that is now coming together. And it says, for look, I am stirring, so it says, and the Chaldea shall become plunder. All who plunder her shall satisfy themselves, declares Yahuwah. Because you were glad, because you rejoiced, you who plunder my inheritance, because you have grown fat like a heifer, threshing grain, and you nigh like stallions. So you must understand, this is the end time Babylon, that prides itself in its power, and it prides itself in its richness. It's a priding itself in its military, in its power, in its greatness. Your mother shall be greatly ashamed. She who bore you shall be humiliated. Look, the last of the nations, a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert, because of the wrath of Yahuwah, shall not be inhabited, but she shall be deserted. All of it, everyone passing by Babel, shall be astonished and whistle at all her plagues. So, do you remember, let's go look quickly here at Revelation chapter 18, that he said that, come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins and lest you receive of her plagues. So you must understand there are the plagues that are going to come. Now look and see verse 8. Because of this, her plagues shall come in one day, death and mourning and scarcity of food, and she shall be burnt up with fire, because Yahuwah Eluah, who judges her, is mighty. So understand, Yaret is talking about that they will be astonished and whistle at her plagues. Set yourselves in array against Babel all around. All you who bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against Yahuwah. So understand, Father is not going to relent, but he is going to bring his judgment. He's going to bring not just his judgment, but his wrath against this Babylon. Shout against her all around. She has given her hand, her foundations have fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of Yahuwah. Take vengeance on her, as she has done, so do to her. So if we look at Revelation 18 again, verse 6, listen to what it says. Render to her as she indeed did render, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mix for her double. So do you see? She makes us drink the cup of the wine that is mixed. So do you understand? She wants us to drink the wine of the fornication. She wants us to drink the wine of the intoxication. She wants us to drink the wine of the intoxication of that which is wine that is not the pure grape juice that the Father has wanting us to be able to take, but instead taking the intoxication of this wine. Because if we read in Revelation chapter 17 from verses 5, what does it say? And upon her forehead a name written, a secret, Babel the Great, the mother of whores and the abomination of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the set apart ones and with the blood of the witnesses of Yahuwah. And having seen her, I marveled, greatly marveled. So do you understand? She's got a cup, and the cup, look and see verse 4. And the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. Everything that you would see in the tabernacle, the colors of the tabernacle, the scarlet and the purple. These are the colors of the tabernacle. But you see, everything with the enemy is the counterfeit. And so it's arrayed in stones and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup filled with abominations and the filthiness of her whoring. So you see, look and see what it says in verse 2, 17 verse 2. Let's read from verse 2. And with whom the sovereigns of the earth committed whoring, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her whoring. So do you understand? They were made drunk because they drank the wine of these false doctrines that have been given them, that says, these doctrines even tell you to drink fermented alcoholic wine and tell you it's okay to do that. But yet the Father tells us in Leviticus chapter 10 verses 9. Let's go there quickly while we're at it so that we understand when he says, touch nothing that is unclean. You are to come out. You are to have nothing to do with what is unclean. And so we must understand, what was it that this harlot has done? It brings us doctrines of demons, and the doctrines of demons is to be able to get us to stand against Abba Yahuwah and against his ways. Now look at what happens. Understand what happened to Nadab and Abinu. What did they do? They went and they offered incense on an altar, but could it have been that maybe because they had drank the alcohol that they shouldn't have? But let's go have a look. Read it from the beginning, but we're going to go look at verses 8 and 9. And it says, from verse 8, and Yahuwah spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tent of appointment, lest you die, a law forever throughout your generations, so as to make a distinction between the set apart and the profane, between the unclean and the clean. Remember what he said in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, when he turned around and he says, come out, touch nothing that is unclean. Here we go. And teach the children of Israel all the laws which Yahuwah has spoken to them by the hand of Moshe. So do you understand? And this is why these religions, same as with Judaism, they will want to give you, even to sit and take communion with alcohol that is wine, as opposed to giving you the pure grape juice. So do you understand? This is why the Father is bringing this judgment now against this revelation, and it says, so you're going to render to her as she is indeed render, and repay her double according to her works in the cup which she has mixed for her double. And so let's go back to Jeremiah, because the Father is, this is going to be a long message, but it's okay. Father is in control. And we read now in Revelations 18 from verses 20 and 23. Listen to what it says in Revelation 18, 20 to 23. Verse 20 and then 23. Rejoice over her, O heavens, and you set apart emissaries and the prophets, for Elohim has completely avenged you on her. So you see, because she destroyed the prophets, because she destroyed his set apart ones, his set apart people, he's going to bring vengeance on her. Then listen to what it says in verse 23. And the light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more at all. And the voice of the bridegroom, a bride, shall not be heard in you any more at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth. For by your drug sorcery, all the nations were led astray. And you see, that's part of the destruction that is going on at the moment with this thing of this pharmakia that is being given to us at the moment, to mix our seed that is a pure seed set apart with the name of Yod Hey Vav Hey, to mix it to become a mixed hybrid seed that's no longer pure. And so we continue to read in Jeremiah, and it says, verse 16, cut off the sower from Babel and him who handles the sickle at harvest time. From before the sword of the oppressor, each one turns to his own people, and each one flees to his own land. So you see, the sword is going to come, and the people are going to flee. Israel is scattered, sheep and lions have driven him away. First the sovereign of Ashur devoured him, and now, at last, this Nebuchadrezzar, sovereign of Babel, has broken his bones. So you see, this is now when there's going to be the judgment that's going to come upon upon the sovereign of Babel. But understand, Father used the sovereign to come up against his own people, Israel. Why? Because at the end of the day, they became just like Babel, where they were worshipping other gods. They didn't want to follow the ways of Abba Yahuwah. They did not want to follow his Torah. They did not want to follow his right rulings and his precepts and his ordinances. And so he's saying, and I shall bring back Israel. So, verse 18. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, see, I'm punishing the sovereign of Babel and his land as I have punished the sovereign of Ashur. So understand, there's going to be a punishment that is going to come upon Babel. And we know that that did happen because the father came up against Nebuchadrezzar. He came up against him. And I shall bring back, this is future again, and I shall bring back Israel to his pasture, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his being shall be satisfied on the Mount Ephraim and Gilead. And in those days and at that time, declares Yahuwah, the crookedness of Israel shall be searched for, but there shall be none. Oh, Abba Yahuwah, may we look forward to this day when the Father delivers us completely from the crookedness of the way that we have been, where we have gone astray, where we have fornicated, and where we have bowed to other Baalim, to these other gods, as opposed to bowing to him and to his ways. And so he says, and shall be searched for, but there shall be none. And the sin of Yehudah, but none shall be found, for I shall pardon those whom I leave as a remnant. So praise the Father. He's going to have a remnant, and this remnant is those that are going to return back to his ways, to his precepts, to his ordinances, to his commands, to his ways. And they are those that are going to be able to walk upon this earth in spirit and in truth, led by the Ruach and in the truth of the fullness of his word, of his Torah, of his foundation, of his covenant that he made with us from the beginning. Go up against the land of Mithraim, against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Slay and put them under the ban, declares Yahuwah, and do according to all that I have commanded you. There is a sound of battle in the land and of great destruction. How the hammer of all the earth has been cut off and broken, how Babel has become a ruin among the nations. Now remember, we read that in Revelation 18 verses 9, and it said, and the sovereigns of the earth who committed whoring and lived righteously with her shall weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning. Verse 10, standing at a distance for fear of her torture, saying, woe, woe, the great city Babel the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour. So that is now Revelation 18 verses 9 and 10, where the Father is speaking of Yani, saying, and how the hammer of the earth has been cut off and broken, how Babel has become a ruin among the nations. I have laid a snare for you, and you were captured, O Babel, and you yourself did not know. You have been found and also caught, because you strove against Yahuwah. So understand something. If you are going to stay in Babylon and you want to continue to stay in the religion of Babylon and you are not wanting to come out of her, you will come up against Abba Yahuwah, and therefore you will not bow to him. And that's why he says, come out of her. And that's why he's saying he's got a remnant, and the remnant shall clean themselves up, and the remnant shall come away from all that is destructive. Yahuwah has opened his armory and has brought out the weapons of his displeasure. For the master, Eloah of hosts, has a work to do in the land of the Kasdim. Come against her from every quarter, open her storehouses, pile her up as heaps of ruin, put her under the ban, let her have no remnant. Sure. So the Father is saying that there will be no remnant left in. If you do you hear what I've just said? If you're going to stay in Babylon, Babylon will be destroyed and there will be no remnant left of her. And that is why he's warning and saying, come out of her, my people, so that you will not drink from the destruction that is going to come upon this land of Babylon. And this is this world system, and this is this world religion. It's going to be one world religion, and it's going to be one world system. And that is why he's saying, do not partake of her, or else you will partake of her plagues. Remember the scarcity of food and the plagues and everything that is going to come upon this Babylon. Slay all her bulls, let them go down to the slaughter. Woe to them, for their day has come, the day of their punishment. We just read that. Listen, they flee and escape from the land of Babel, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Yahuwah our Eloah, the vengeance of his hekel. So he's going to have his vengeance for what they did against his hekel, his tabernacle, his temple, at the time when they came in and they ransacked and they destroyed it. And he will have his vengeance. Summon archers against Babel, all you who bend the bow, encamp against it all around. Let no one escape. Repay her according to her work. Do to her according to all she has done, for she has been proud against Yahuwah, against the set-apart one of Israel. So you see, she has been proud. She has stood up against. That's why he says in Revelation 18 verses 6, render to her as she indeed rendered, as she indeed render, and repay her double according to her work in the cup which she has mixed and mix for her double. So understand, this is what he's saying in Revelation chapter 6. So if we look at the whole of, not Revelation chapter 6, Revelation 18 verse 6. And so this is why we must understand that everything about this Jeremiah chapter 50, if we go and work through the whole of Revelation 17, if we work through Revelation 18, we will see this all tying in together. And so he says, because you must understand, it is the pride. I mean, think about the pride. This is just coming up now. I just want to read it in Revelation 9. Just read Revelation chapter 9, where it turns around and it says, Revelation 9, verse 20, and it says, and the rest of mankind who were not killed, listen to what he says in verses 18. And a third of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues, by the fire and the smoke and the sulfur which came out of their mouths. For the authority of the horses in them is in their mouth and in their tail, for their tails are like serpents having heads, and with them they do harm. And the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, and they should not worship the demons and the idols of gold and silver and brass and of stone and of wood, which are neither able to see nor hear nor walk. So you see, they would not repent. And because they would not repent, Abba brings the great judgment of his wrath upon them. Because why? They would not repent, because he's saying, the arrogance, see, I'm against you, O proud one, declares the Master Yahuwah of hosts. For your day has come, the time of your punishment, because they have led the nations astray through their whoring, through their pharmakia, through all the deception that they have brought. And now the Father is going to bring his punishment upon them. And the proud one shall stumble, and he shall fall, no one to rise him up. And I shall kindle a fire in its cities, and it shall devour all around him. Remember with that we read how it's going to burn. They're going to stand and they're going to see the city burning. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, the children of Israel were oppressed along with the children of Yehudah. So you see, so these 12 tribes are being oppressed, and all who took them captive have held them fast. They have refused to let them go. So do you understand that there are many that are going to be taken captive? There are many that they are going to be able to bring their punishment upon. Remember what we read in Revelation chapter 2 that says that even in Matthew chapter 24, that it talks about that there will be many that are going to be able to be put in prison. And in Revelation chapter 2, where it talks about the church of Smyrna, where the Father talks about that for 10 days, there's going to be a punishment for 10 days. Let's just have a look at Revelation chapter 2 while this is coming to me now. It says in the church of Smyrna, from verses 10, he says, Revelation chapter 2 verse 10, do not be afraid for what you are about to suffer. See, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison in order to try you, and you shall have pressure 10 days, but trustworthy until death, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. He who overcomes shall by no means be harmed by the second death. So do you see why it's saying that he's speaking, and he's saying that there's going to be the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah, and all who took them captive have held them fast. They refuse to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. Wow! Who is our Redeemer? Yahushua is our Redeemer. Their Redeemer is strong. Yahuwah of hosts is his name. Yahuwah Tzavaot. He shall strongly plead their case. So see, what does Yahushua say in Matthew chapter 24? He says, do not fear when you have to stand before the council of the Sanhedrin. Do not fear, because he will be with us. He will be the one to deliver us. He will be the one to put words in our mouths that we need to speak. He's the one who's going to be able to go before us. He says, he shall strongly plead their case so as to give rest to the land, but unrest to the inhabitants of Babel. And the sword is upon the Kasdim, declares Yahuwah, and it is upon the inhabitants of Babel, and upon the heads and upon the wise men. So you see, all those merchants and all those scientists and all those professors and all those presidents of all these countries and all these sovereigns and all these mighty men that are going to think that they stand, they will fall. They are all going to fall. And a sword is upon the liars, and they shall be fools. A sword is upon her mighty men, and they shall be broken down. A sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mixed people. There we go again. You see, the mixed people, because what is Babylon? Babylon is the mixture, which is the confusion, and that is going to be upon the mixed people who are in her midst. So understand, if we do not come out of there, we will be the mixed people. So if you are a believer and you are in this religion that is of this mixed seed. Listen to what it says. And the sword is upon their horses, upon their chariots, and upon the mixed people who are in her midst, and they shall become like women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be plundered. So do you see? The Father is going to come upon, listen, a sword is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. Because what are they doing? What are they using? They're using the very water to be able to bring the serpent seed even through the water, to poison the people through the water. So that is why the Father is going to judge in every way. And the sword is upon the waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is a land of carved images, and they boast about their idols. So you see, it's the idolatry. What are the two things that they boast themselves in? They boast in idolatry and pride, all false deities and gods. And this is the idolatry of the mammon. It's all about the riches. It's all about mammon. This is what this whole thing of pharmakia is about. Pharmakia is your biggest, wealthiest industry because of the wealth that they have done. That's why it's the merchants of the earth that have become rich through this pharmakia. Therefore, the wild desert beasts shall dwell with the jackals, and the ostriches dwell in it, and I shall never again be inhabited nor dwell in it unto all generations. So you see, utter destruction. As Elua overthrew Sodom and Amorah and their neighboring cities, declares Yahuwah, so no one would dwell there, nor would son of man sojourn in it. So understand, today, if we go to the land of Eretz Israel and we drive there by where the Dead Sea is, and you can just see the formation of where you could see those formations, that you can see that there must have been a city there. It's very strange. It's not little hills or anything, where it's all being covered by the salt of the Sodom and Gomorrah. That is no more. And this is what the Father is saying. See, a people shall come from the north, a great nation, and many sovereigns stirred up from the ends of the earth. They strengthen their bow and spear. They are cruel, and they show no compassion. They sound like the roaring sea, and ride on horses, set array like a man for the battle against you, O daughter of Babel. So you see, those scorpions that is going to ride horses, that's spoken of in Revelation chapter 9, and then it's the horses running in Revelation chapter 6. So all these things are the very things that is going to come. Because remember, in Revelation chapter 9, listen to what it says. It says, and in verse 17, and this is how I saw the horses in the vision, and those who sat on them, having breastplates of fiery red and blue and sulfur, hyacinth blue and sulfur yellow, and the heads of the horses were like heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. So you see, just like it was the sulfur that came up against what? That came up against Sodom and Gomorrah. That's why you can still find sulfur pieces there in Sodom and Gomorrah, because it's these horses, it's these armies. Listen to what it says. And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. And I heard the number of them. And these are the ones that's going to come. Do you understand? So that's Revelation chapter 9, verses 16 to 17. And so we continue to read. And the sovereign of Babel has heard the report about them, and his hands become weak. Distress has taken hold of him, pain like that of a woman in labor. See, he comes up like a lion from the Jordan jungle against the enduring pasture. But in an instant I shall make them run away from her. And who is the chosen one? Wow. Whom I appoint against her. You see, who is going to be the chosen one that is going to be appointed against her? Yeshua in Revelation chapter 19. So let's look and see in Revelation chapter 19. And look and see Revelation 19 verse 11. And I saw the heavens open, and there was a white horse, and he who sat on them was called trustworthy and true, and in righteousness he judges and fights, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, having a name that had been written, which no one has perceived except himself. And having been dressed in a robe, dripped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahuwah. And the armies of heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron, and he treads the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of El Shaddai. And so that's why he says, and who is the chosen one whom I appoint against her? For who is like me? Who summons me? And who is the shepherd who stands before me? Who is the shepherd? The one that in Revelation chapter 4, the one that stood where the door was opened, and he is the shepherd that is saying, come up higher. The door has been opened. Then, Revelation chapter 5, what do we learn in Revelation chapter 5? When it is Yeshua, the one, Yeshua HaMashiach, the one, the Lion of the tribe of Yehudah, who is worthy to open the scroll, to open the seals on the scroll. So who is that? Therefore hear the counsel of Yahuwah, which he has counseled concerning Babel, and his purpose he has purposed concerning the land of the Kasdim. The least of the flock shall drag them away. He shall make their pasture a waste before them. At the sound of Babel's capture, the earth shall be shaken, and the outcry shall be heard among the nations. Why? Because that will be the last shout, which is going to be the shaking that's going to come, because Yeshua is going to come at the last trumpet sound. Praise Abba Yahuwah for his grace and his love and his mercy and his word. Wow, Abba Yahuwah, thank you for this powerful message that you've given us tonight, for us to understand that the Father is going to bring his judgments, and that we need to now be those that need to raise up in this hour to be sealed and protected by him. And that is why he is sealing off his remnant, his bride. He's sealing them off in this time as we continue to prepare ourselves for the Shavuot, to receive the fullness of that sealing with his ketubah. May you all enjoy your evening. Shalom, shalom. Abba bless you all.